my personal success will be when I'm going to be driving my first spaceship, not just as a passenger, but I have to drive my spaceship in space. Then at that point, I will be happy and satisfied. I do remember one US investor told me, Luca, you are a liar. It's all fake. It's impossible. You were able to do what you are claiming you have done with just this amount of money.
Hey, Luca, great to have you at Builders. Thanks for joining me here.
No, thank you. Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here. My name is Luca Rossettini. I'm the CEO and founder of The Orbit.
I would want to jump right in. The Orbit is one of the Italian, prides that I have. When I travel anywhere and they talk about the space industry, the first company that I mentioned, do you want to give us a bit of a primer, what you guys do? What have you been doing for the past, over 10 years? Yeah, or hour?
I think this year it's going to be the 15th year.
Okay.
So yes, we are the dinosaurs of the new space. Yeah.
It's an industry that needs dinosaurs, but so many young guns. What's the Orbit? What's your mission? What have you been focusing on?
So the Orbit has the vision of creating the first logistics infrastructure in orbit, not just to enable the existing space economy, but also to pave the future of the human expansion in sustainable space. So the idea is if tomorrow we are going to be on Mars, on the asteroid belt, on the moon, then we want to create this logistic infrastructure connecting Mars, the asteroid belt, moon, and Earth, capable of transporting goods, as we are already doing around the Earth. People, of course, like information, because without a cloud network, it's impossible to think of any business, and energy as well, because currently spaceships bring energy with them, and the idea is to distribute the energy in space as well.
I think there's a lot to unpack there. I will start from one image that I think people that are following the space industry a bit more might have seen, which is your satellite barrier getting detached multiple times from Falcon 9, bringing the satellites that it carries by name to the right orbit. And that was was that the first product that you guys got together?
No, actually. So, I told you what is going to be the vision, and the vision, I gave you an image of how, like, there is an intermediate step towards the vision. And to get to that image, so this cloud infrastructure, logistic infrastructure, then it takes a lot of different steps. And then, so at the very beginning, 2011, we started from the vision, and then we worked backwards towards the 2011. We said, okay, now we have a roadmap that was based on markets, not really on products, because it was very difficult to predict the technology, especially for space. I mean, the space market was not the space market that we were forecasting was not existing yet. So we said, okay, let's start talking about markets rather than technologies. And then at the very first day, we have to decide which product to launch on the market. And since you work for a VC fund, you know very well that at the beginning you cannot tell too much. So if we were telling the vision at the beginning, it would be a disaster, especially in Europe. So we focused on something that was understandable, very focused on one single product, but that in our view could act as a stepping stone, as a bunch of technology that could be used later on in the following progress of the company. So we started from a decommissioning device, because the space debris was already an issue for scientists, but not for the industry. No one was really working on the problem. And so we invented this device that was meant to remove satellites at the end of life, even when the satellites were dead. So autonomous, independent from the satellite, was coming with propulsion, with computer, radios, antennas, everything. So a very small, reliable satellite that you plug into an existing satellite before launch and capable of removing at the end. The point is, very good piece of technology that helped us to, jump into the satellite market later on. But at that time, we really struggled a lot to sell that device. The market was not ready. We were too young and the only players were giants. So even the customers, imagine the geostationary satellite operators, talking to a company of 3 people. They say, well, let's assume that we buy this engine and we put it in our $400 million satellite. Will you be here in 15 years when we need to use it? Right? So then we start working with insurance companies, we start working with the satellite manufacturers. I mean, so far we sold 3 of them. So it was not a good move from a technology, from a market perspective, if you want. But it was a very good move because it enabled us to acquire all the competence and capabilities that we needed to go to the next step. That was like small satellites. So that was the very first product. Ion came later on when the market of small satellites exploded, and many companies start declaring that they wanted to build constellations of satellites. Then we immediately understood that the time for the logistics was there. So I said, okay, how would they make sure that their constellations would be in place in the right time in order to do a good business? Because these new satellites are way cheaper than in the past. But that means that they last less, and time is of essence. So time is money. And so we start building so the Ion was conceived in 2015, and then it took quite a while because we didn't have any money at that time, like literally no money. And then it was ready in 2019. Then we got stuck into a launcher for 2 years. And basically we launched it in 2020, the very first one. So anyway, it's now it's history, but at that time was we almost risked to run out of money when our first Ion was stuck into the launcher, because we had all the suppliers that they were requesting to be paid, and then we were waiting for the launch to happen in order to get the first revenues and some money, some additional money. So it was not a nice situation, but I mean, yeah, it's history, but also very good proof of resilience of my team.
And I think they also narrates something about the space industry, and it's biblical, time cycles. And I want to do a flashback out the industries that are gonna for the audience, like gonna do also is like what we cover. Also, the piece of the value chain you guys stays here is post large one by Livelier takes care. It's post launch. It's once the launcher, the rocket has reached orbit, whereas there's a leap is insert the camera line. It's not a bring their utilize to the river board, deploy the rig at the right time, at the right day, load lag back the earth that it did so. And yeah, and it does a lot of lag that even in that specific tasks. Is that some for viewer? Is the satellite is the launch charge?
Yeah. So you said correctly. So I mean, with one exception that I mentioned later, all our services are like purely upstream. So doesn't matter how you reach space. From that moment, then we take care, right? So we provide you the service. So the Ion, it's one of the services that we provide. So the fast deployment in orbit, anywhere, anytime. We went up to 1,200 kilometers and as down as 300 kilometers. So we went pretty much everywhere, and we deploy the satellites exactly where they need to operate in the fastest way possible. That's the service that we offer. Of course, we take care of the first leg, but we don't build the rockets. There are very good companies out there building rockets. We use a lot of SpaceX, but we have contracts with PLD, ESA, and many other players on the market. We flew with the PSLV, even the Ukrainian launcher at the very beginning, the Dnieper, long time ago. Now it's no more. So the first leg, someone else. when you are in orbit and you want cloud computing services, you want logistics of any kind, you want to test your technology, then yes, we can provide that service. So and the exception is the downstream. We also offer service in the downstream, but just because we acquired a very good company, Planetech, that actually we use for the cloud computing in orbit, but they were very active in the downstream, one of the best companies in Europe, by the way. So that's an additional element. But let's say our core business, it's in space. So our customers are primarily satellite operators. So that's our core business. Satellite operators of constellations, of single satellites, but also startup and research labs that they have very new, innovative, interesting technologies that could be very useful for me as a customer or as a supplier. Um, and that technology need to be tested in orbit because, in space, if you don't test the technology, no one is going to buy whatever you produce. And, I know very well because I was on the other side of the table at the beginning. I was willing to pay the customer, please put it in your satellite. I'm going to pay you. So now we offer this service to accelerate the go-to-market for startup as well. So, but overall, satellite operators are the main category. Lately we start, since we manufacture satellites, so our Ion is a very good satellite because it's more performing than the typical satellites. It can move from orbit to orbit. So we decided that the satellite market could be very interesting as well. And we started in US a company specifically with the intention of providing satellites into the US market. So not just for commercial satellite operators, but also to governments and institutions and defense lately.
Yes, that's the map there. It's pretty easy just to think about satellite manufacturing. Up until a few years ago, and it might be also a subject now. Every satellite used to be a very specialized project of itself. It had very specific requirements. Own project, yes, it's only in the little bit. Are you really in change or a little bit over standardization how satellites are being made? Is that where you're trying to capitalize on in the US?
Yeah. So let's say nowadays, like today, 2026, now the situation has completely changed from what you described, right? So everybody's thinking about standard satellites because if you want to launch a constellation, now at the beginning, constellations were a dozen satellites. Now we are talking about hundreds or even thousands of satellites. So you cannot afford a single customization of every satellite. You want to have like automotive, like a chain production of satellites and so on. But there's still some customization that you have to consider. When we started Ion, so I said Ion was conceived in 2015. At that time, there were, apart from the initial idea of Starlink at that time, and maybe, I don't even know about OneWeb, but there were no constellations designed already in this way. Iridium maybe was the first attempt. But if you think about my business, I have to fly a lot of vehicles that have to be compatible with many different type of payloads. So all the satellites that I'm transporting are equivalent to a camera or a radio or an antenna for me. So they are payloads that I need to transport, and I need to be compatible with all of them. But at the same time, I need to offer a cost-efficient service. Because if I'm too expensive, because I'm tailoring everything to a single customer, then I'm killing the advantage that I'm giving to the customers. So what we did, we standardized the bus. So we have one bus that it's always the same, and then we customize only the payload bay. So doesn't matter if you have an antenna or a radio or a satellite to be launched. If you are compatible with let's say the capabilities of that specific vehicle, and now we have a family of vehicles, then no problem at all. It's a fast customization that we can do without compromising the standardization of the bus. And then you need to keep evolving the bus. And that's tricky because in the past, in the automotive, when you spend a lot of time for a production line, then it takes 20 years to, let's say, to recover the investments. But if you have to keep evolving the platform almost at every flight, then you cannot afford such a production line. So the trick was to create an automated, or let's say, a serial production of satellites with the capability of evolving. So you have to design the satellite in order that tomorrow you take out one electronic board and you put the new one without changing the entire design. And the fact that we are testing technology in orbit is an advantage because I can test my own technology. And so I don't need to, I mean, it's already validated. When I plug it in as a, let's say, going into the real operation, then it's already validated from the previous mission, right? So you have to work on all these aspects in order to make sure that you have a standardization, as you mentioned. Not easy, but also what we are going to do now in the new facility, we go an additional step. We said standardization leading to automation. Automation will further reduce the cost. That means more advantages for the customers that are going to use the service.
And when you say OC automation, automation of production.
Yes.
And it's interesting, just the thing of time, you know, you need that 30 people, PhDs, you know, put together and load everything, and you know, we might have robots, so that's quite a step. And I wanted to bring there was that like you've seen a lot of it. Did you to 2011 when you started building the RBO? What's your background? Or what led you to this?
Well, if you look at my background, and if you just read it without knowing the why of my background, you probably think that I studied too much. I have a lot of degrees, but several masters, PhD, and certificates in business. But the reality is that I wanted to become an astronaut. So I had to go through, especially in Europe, you have one chance in a life, right? So, and typically you have 4 seats for 10,000, 15,000 applicants. So you really have to be prepared and have all the tick in the box. So I studied a lot. I went through what was necessary, even joined the army for a couple of years as a parachuting officer. That was not enough, by the way, because at that time you need to be a pilot, not just a regular officer in the army. But anyway, so that was my motivation for the background. A lot of engineering, of course, a lot of technical aspects. I even created 2 companies before the orbit. Profitable since day one, zero scalability. So, you know, not something very suitable for VCs. But you pay the bill, you pay the supermarket when you go and buy the food. So, and then 2011 happened after, so in 2008 and 2009, the astronaut contest came out in Europe. I went through the selection, almost to the end, but almost make a difference. I didn't reach the end, so I'm not an astronaut. So I had to find another way to space at that point, because I wanted to go to space. So I won a Fulbright scholarship. I went to US, I studied business there, and then I joined NASA. And NASA, that gave me the missing piece. I was working at this project of a small satellite at NASA Ames in California, together with Chris Boschwitz and Will Marshall, the 2 founders of Planet Labs. And then at that time was 2009, and we understood that the market was going to change soon. So in 2010, we departed. They went to create Planet Labs, and then Renato and I, we met there at NASA. We went back to Europe to create the Orbit. So that's actually what led us to the creation of the company. Was not trivial, because we thought, okay, we are coming from NASA. We know that there are venture capital money, even in Europe. It's going to be easy. It was a nightmare. We weren't able to raise €1 at that time. So it was really tough.
I find it's interesting just to came back from the US to build this company later.
Yeah, you know, space, it's interesting because now we see coming back to the situation of like 15 years ago, right? So space at the beginning was defense, was space and defense, was not space. Then when the commercial phase started, defense, let's say, kind was put on hold, and then space had its own growth, mainly on civil application. That always be defense applications, but the main focus was civilian applications. And then now we are back to space and defense. Actually, if you look at there was this, I don't know if it was a joke or not, but one guy at the government in US told us, well, we didn't cut the space budget. We just gave it to the defense, right? So we are living in a, like, we are going back at at that moment. So in 2010, it was impossible for a foreigner to create a space company in US. Even at NASA, I had a special permit to go through two fences, like even the second fence when you are in the base, but to cross the second one, every single day, I have to wait for someone to come at the door and say, okay, now you can step in. Once I stepped in, then I could walk anywhere. But you are still a foreigner. So the only solution was going back to Europe, and at that time, actually, it seemed to be a very good idea because you had US, the biggest market, is still the biggest market, but then you have also the Far East, another very big market that was just starting. China was at the very, very beginning of space at that time. And so from Europe, you can serve both, while from US, you have only US, and from China, you have only China. Unfortunately, it didn't happen because Europe took a position, and now, as you can see, it's changing again the position. So, but that's the reason why we went back to Europe at that time. And the second reason was talents. When we were in US, we were interviewing people, and all the, say, the American style at school, it's a little bit different from the type of education you can get in Europe. It's more so like a grad person. It's very good on doing something, right? So very, very good. It's very prepared. So an electronic engineer can design and produce an electronic board straight away. In Europe, it's not like that. You get a lot of theory. You know how to design the board, but you don't know how to produce it. But at the same time, an electronic engineer in US, it's very good on electronics, but it's not as good as that in all the other engineering subjects. While in Europe, an electronic engineer can easily do the calculations on, like, mechanical engineering or telecommunication engineering. It's not the best, but still, they can do that. So, but when you start a company like that, where there is no market, investors don't believe you, the experts of the sectors are telling you, oh, it's not going to happen, never in the future, then you need a very flexible team and very few people because you don't have the money. So, because it's easy to start a company with 50 people. But when you have the possibility of hiring only 2 or 3, then you need to make sure that those 2 or 3 are very, very flexible and capable of covering the entirety of the knowledge that you need. And that's what Europe actually is providing. It's one competitive advantage that I think we have. And that's the reason why we went back.
In this, how is the day or operation divided between the UE, Italy, and many other countries? How's the orbit organized this?
Yeah. So, by the way, we spent several months of completely reorganizing the company. As I said to my team, I took away the floor from their feet in order to see if they were falling on, or like opening the wings and start flying again, right? So we are organized in business units, but geographically speaking, the headquarters is in Italy, where we have also the production of the space vehicles. We do have a company in Apulia, in the south, where, like, that we acquired, so they are very strong on the downstream, and they are working on the cloud computing in orbit. Then we have UK, where we take care of the space cloud computing. We have Portugal. Portugal, it has always been the software house of the orbiter, but in this particular case, they are taking care of satellite operations and cybersecurity for satellites. We have Greece, recently started. We are going to provide satellite manufacturing over there. We have a small facility there. US, satellite manufacturing. Of course, US, it's a little bit different because we need to give a lot of autonomy there, but there's a lot of cooperation among the teams. And then even more recently than Greece, we have the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, where we started a company just a few weeks ago, like a couple of weeks ago. A couple of months ago.
Okay. And so this structure it's a mix of taking advantage of political advantages. It could be grants, good for being reproduction, being close to certain hub, and independence for the type of very critical products that you're providing, specifically in the US.
Yeah, I'd say that at the beginning, this structure was made in a very opportunistic way and without any structure. Actually, we did a lot of mistakes. We started the Orbit Inc., that is not the company we have now, in 2012, a big fail. Without, no, I mean, we were thinking, oh, US is a big market, let's start a company. Everybody's telling you, even the investors, oh, you have to go to US, you have to go to US. Yeah, but you don't know what it takes to do business in US. It's a lot of money, guys. The people over there cost like an unimaginable amount of dollars per month. Everything is very expensive. And then you need to have a sizable team to become relevant. So it's a lot of investment you have to take into consideration. We didn't have any money. We started the company and basically stayed dormant for like a decade. And now we revived the company, creating this subcode that it's fully operational with a very good team. And of course, we invested quite a lot of money in the US activities. So at the beginning, even UK, we started because we got on board Seraphim Capital, that really changed completely our life. So without Seraphim, probably wouldn't be here. But then one of the requirement was to have an office in UK. So we said, okay, if we have to start in UK, let's make a sense of that. And it was random. Now it's, of course, you grow up, you hire people that are way, way better than you, and then you start thinking maybe we need to provide some structure. So it's from opportunistic, now it's becoming more strategic. So we go either to open new markets, or where we see that there are capabilities on certain areas that we want to create line of business out of, or because there are a lot of suppliers, and then at that point it's not a legal entity, but it's more like an office, or a sales office. But if you want to work with governments, then of course you need to be there and you need to have a legal entity. Like in US, you need to be there if you want to work with the US government, and you need to respect certain type of, let's say, structure of the companies there. Otherwise, we will not be able to do any business.
I want to go back to the product roadmap that connects us to the visualization. The community realized you only sold to three. It was a bit of a real that immersion brought up on about it was great your feels the door. I it is one of its customers from what you have tested. It's probably is it the leading platform was the leading base a side on? Is that the way they would call it?
Yeah. So the D3 was the name of the engine. We when we started the company, we knew that we had to create all the technologies from zero, because we couldn't go to like the big players. So Thales Alenia has a very nice computer for satellites, but it was few million euro each. It was like big like that and less powerful than the iWatch. Right? So it was in our small satellites, it couldn't fit. So we have to invent everything. And so the D3 was perfect because it was a testing bed, but also a product. But we completely underestimated the timing on the market. Now we start receiving the request for quotation for that device. So like 15 years after, right? So it was totally like mistaken. Ion now, it's still the leading platform worldwide speaking. We flew, I think, 22 missions so far, all successful. Let's knock on wood and on iron, depends on the country, but and we deploy more than 200 and I don't know 30 payloads in orbit so far. So yeah, but there are other players. So other players tried to get into the business in the past, and then for different reasons they failed. Then new players are coming as well, and not just in US this time. We have a couple of players in Europe as well. They are getting there. With some of them, we are also working together. So I think we need more. I mean, logistics now, it's whoever design a constellations, they are like, at the beginning, we have to sell the service. Now it's already part of the trade-off. So it's already part of how you design a constellation, because you know that you can have access to these type of services. So yes, but logistics is not just transportation. As I mentioned before, there are many different services that you can add. So for example, if you have a bunch of satellites, but you don't want to deliver all of them at the same time in orbit, uh, either because you are a defense customer and you want to keep them there and just decide later where to position, or you want to reduce the traceability, then you can use me as a sort of orbital warehouse and then deliver the satellite later. Or as it's happening now, we have a couple that are already working. You want to send in orbit, let's say, one batch of 4 satellites they have to go in a specific orbit. But then why not give me your camera as well? So I transport your 4th satellite and then I become the 5th. You can rent my satellite. So you save all the construction cost, all the risk, the launch cost, and then also the mission risk, because if the launch explodes for some reason, let's hope it doesn't happen, but then at that point you have no expenses apart from the payload that is still very like negligible amount with respect to the total mission. So many new way of using us, it's coming from customers now. So they come to us and say, oh, can I use your vehicle to do this and this and this? And it's very interesting. Even the cloud computing started like that. So like an internal team talking with customers, they ended up say, okay, maybe we need to do something for that. We need to increase the computational power, but not just for us. We need to connect many ions together. Each ion shall become a node of a cloud computing system in order to provide these capabilities to all the other satellite operators. And that's how it started.
You mentioned a cybersecurity component to the Dallas hour business. I think particularly interested in South from a geopolitics perspective today. Can you give us a bit of a prior of why being satellite is essentially the base?
So cannot provide you a lot of information on this topic, but first of all, we are still focusing, on the upstream. So our focus for cybersecurity is not much on the downstream. There are a lot of very good companies that are working on that, but on the satellite side, where we need a lot of progress. So that's what we are working on, and from a very new perspective. So, and it's needed because uh, let's take again the current geopolitical scenarios today, right? So very bad geopolitical scenario. Every day I read the news and I said, no, it's a really unpredictable events. And also in these scenarios, space is becoming one of the most important strategic sector. So if space is becoming important, that means that more and more satellites are going to be used in space, but also they are going to be targets of attacks. So how you make sure that the information you get from satellite is the right information? How can you make sure that your satellite cannot be used as a weapon or like in a bad way? Or how can you make sure that your satellite is not blinded by some other? So I think it's becoming more and more important to protect the assets, and it's not science fiction. We do this for all our assets on ground, on Earth. We protect our facilities, we protect our cars, we protect our houses. So we need to protect our assets in space. So I believe this is going to be a huge market in the future, but also a necessary action that is not just to make money, but it's really to protect the business and the ecosystem as well.
Where do you business life things beyond cybersecurity will take you to that vision? So I can see synergy. You use it out very clearly.
Yeah. So, well, everything that we do, it's enabling the next step, right? So, logistics, it's enabling the ecosystem, and also for us to have a vehicle that is capable of moving anywhere, basically. The cloud computing is very important because imagine the next step in orbit servicing. The big boy that we are building downstairs here, 15 meters of like solar panels, 2.5 tons, capable of docking with the geo satellites and provide life extension, relocation or decommission. Right. So imagine now to have hundreds of those vehicles in orbit servicing of any other type of satellites that have to perform complex maneuvers. The more you advance with the technology, the more the complexity it's going to be. The more the complexity, the more the computational power that you will need. The more the computational power, the more energy that you will need in the satellite. More energy, more solar panels, more mass, more cost. So at the end, you want to offer a service at the price, but then you have the cost that slightly will keep going up, and the price cannot adjust at the same time, right? So after 10, 15 years, there will be no market because the cost will be too close to the price. So how can we solve this? Because I need an orbit servicing for the next step that I will tell you in a second. Well, I just take away the cost. So how can I make sure that we don't increase too much the cost of a single vehicle, but actually we distribute the cost? Why not doing as we do here on Earth? I don't have a very high performing computer. I have a very good computer, but then I use the cloud to do all the computation. And I use my computer only for the last mile. And again, the last mile delivery of satellite, last mile delivery of computation. So the cloud computing is important for that reason. Um, uh, like in the vision, of course, that you need to find the application for today because otherwise it's just an investment. And there are many applications, but that's another topic. And now let's go to the in-orbit servicing. You are capable of getting to the satellites and you can make money out of that. But then it's an important step because with the same technology, you can go and grab old vehicles that are there and you can move them into a recycling station in orbit. And then, thanks to that, you can recycle all this material into raw material that you can use for orbital manufacturing and create even bigger vehicles. Because if you really want to make logistics capable of reaching Mars, you need way bigger vehicles than what we are using around the Earth. But you cannot build those vehicles on Earth. It's going to be impossible to launch them. So that's how we get there. Of course, there is another element that is still missing. And we start talking with some startups, and now we know that some of them decide to explore this possibility. So why should I bring 15 meters of solar panels on my satellite if someone else can shoot me energy through a laser? So even the solar plants that some nations like UK want to build on space, thinking to use it to bring the energy down, why not using them to distribute energy in space? That will reduce the cost and also the risks of many space vehicles. You can reach quite a distance with that. So there will be not just fuel gas station in orbit, but also energy stations that will distribute energies in the future. And if some startups want to know more, and we're very happy to talk about, and I hope someone is going to take to do it because I would be a customer of that.
Isn't it small sort to verticalize this or did you check if this else?
So the roadmap is designed for us to do everything, but the point is it really worth it? At the beginning, we have to do everything because there was nothing. But now, if someone else is offering this at the service that is reasonably aligned with our pricing strategy, then why not? Then I save a lot of engineers that I can use on other topics. We are now at the point in which even the orbit, so we are 600 people, need to take careful evaluation if investing internally in research and development or acquiring a company that is already working on that topic, because they are younger, faster, more. You see the hunger in the eyes, and if you want to go even faster than in the past, then inorganic growth it's really important as well. That's why Planetech, they were working on cloud computing in orbit. We were working on cloud computing in orbit, but to get where they were, we need to hire an additional 100 software engineers. You know how long it takes to hire 100 software engineers with Facebook, LinkedIn, and Google all fighting for exactly the same resource? It would have taken forever, right? So you just acquire the company that is already doing it, and then you add this piece to your product, and then you have a new line of business, straightforward.
How do you manage to find that startup first? Because this is mission critical stuff. It's not like a shishi wrong update to a software platform.
Yeah. So first of all, it really depends on the like the phase of the growth of the company. But let's say at the beginning, you need to focus a lot on the attitude of the person rather than the capability. So you really want to have people that don't give up and they are ready to do whatever it takes to get to the last mile, extremely resilient. You don't want that they give up just because something fails, because like failures are 99% of the daily activities, especially at the beginning, right? So you are creating something that is not existing. So that's the type of people, and that type of people create the company culture. And that's fundamental. So even later on, when you start hiring people with competence and capabilities, because you need to scale up and go faster, then you need to select those not for their capabilities, but for their alignment to the company vision and company culture. Because if they are not aligned, then either they create a mess in the company. Maybe they are the best. They are the genius on their field, but they are not capable of leading a team. And leaders, it's one capability of the leaders is really making sure that the team it's willing to follow the order, not just following the order.
Do you have a favorite event in your university, a former company, and alumni of a sort of company that you're specifically hiring from?
Well, so we work with many universities across Europe and beyond Europe, right? In Asia, in Africa, in Middle East, in the United States, and it's a little bit more difficult in Italy to have people from outside of Europe getting in. That's a specifically an Italian problem. Like in Germany, it's way easier, for example. But we do buy people from those areas, and we are talking about young graduate engineers typically. When you go into capabilities, then you look at other companies. We are buying a lot from sectors like automotive or industrial machineries, generally speaking, because they are used to work in serious but not very very big volume, right? So they know how to design for manufacturing, design for production, low cost, because their market, it's of course marginality is very very limited. So those are the capabilities that we like. Of course, they need to adapt to the space, but when you hire people with those capabilities, it's not because they have to screw the screws. You hire them to also to train the good engineers that they know how to make a satellite to move into like this direction.
I'm I, I'm very curious to understand um, what it is for you to say that your youth has been in success. So you're 15 years in. We usually did we did it or is it this one?
So let's say that I created the orbit for a very selfish reason. It was for me to go to space. So my personal success will be when I'm going to be driving my first spaceship, not just as a passenger, but I have to drive my spaceship in space. Then at that point, I will be happy and satisfied. For the orbit, I think the success will come when we will see this image that I projected in your mind at the very beginning happening. And this is not going to happen in 50 years. It's going to happen in probably a dozen, 15 years.
Caristi, last question I ask to every guest. What would you suggest to a young engineer or a young entrepreneur that was a little bit first step up to build something very hard, like you did? Maybe it's way. Here's the thing, not. But it's one of those other trees where they execute for them. It takes immense effort and still a little bit of success. What would you see is kids and the young operators that want to jump and make this jump avoid. If you go back and things.
So, well, as we said before, I'm still in the making, right? So whatever I say, it may be the wrong direction. So take this as a disclaimer. But I would say, so first of all, ask yourself, do you really believe in this? Forget about what all the experts are going to tell you, because the expert may be the expert of the past, not the expert of the future. So you have to ask yourself, do you really believe in what you want to create, and what is the reason? So all the entrepreneurs want to have an impact. We want to change the world, and it doesn't mean that you want to give like access to space to everybody, as like the orbit wants to do. Your impact can be even something different in different sectors, even smaller, but doesn't matter. Ask yourself, what is the impact you want to have? Why the world is going to be a better place thanks to you? So if you are really convinced and you believe in what you want to create and you are having an impact, then go ahead and you will find a way. Probably the first time is not going to go well. The second time is not going to go well. You have to, I talked to 600 and something investors in my life. And for the first 10 years, we got a total amount of 10 million invested in the company. So I do remember one US investor told me, Luca, you are a liar. It's all fake. It's impossible. You were able to do what you are claiming you have done with just this amount of money. So, but it doesn't matter. We are doing it because we have people that actually believe in it. So these two aspects, purpose, like the impact you want to have, and the fact that you believe no matter what, this is what will allow you to go through the up and down that inevitably is going to happen, in the journey.
Thank you so much, Chaiji. I mean, because this is your temporary advice, but I think it's already hyper valuable. And Luca, I can't thank you enough for joining on. If I find myself in the Fino Mornavo again, can I come check out it?
Absolutely. Yeah. You will see a lot of good news when you come.
Yeah, you already go there, then I'll be like a kid at the theme park walking around it. So that would be awesome.
I'm always a kid in the kindergarten every time that I go in the production. So I feel you a lot.
And that's probably one of the secrets to stay relevant you're building. Thank you so much for your time. I hope you can do a part 2 soon, or so each other do Monascos, and I went over the rest of it.
Absolutely. To you as well. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.